What happens to employees when bullies are protected, promoted, while other employees go through hard times? And most of the time, they go through hard times in silence.
My advice is always that if you realize that you are in a hostile environment and a toxic situation, plan your exit as soon as you can. Plan your exit, right? Because navigating that situation will take a toll on you mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so while you are there, try to put in strategies in place. If, for example, you have the privilege of working from home, and you are in a hybrid model, take those days where you have to work from home, and know that when you are working from home, you're at least able to, block out certain interactions where you can, and you're able to manage that situation. And then when you are in the office and you've identified individuals that exude this kind of toxic behavior, try to, again, limit the interaction. Make sure that it's always about the work. Make sure that, you always get straight to the point and get things done when they need to be done. Your performance is still going to be required to be optimal at this point, because what typically happens is that when you're in a toxic environment and it starts affecting you mentally and emotionally, the first thing that you start seeing is a decline in your performance. And trying to find that balancing act of maintaining that level of performing or output while you are dealing with, mental and emotional Jumanji vibes, like you said, is quite difficult. But understand that, if that's the environment that you're in, you cannot be there for long. Try to find those strategies to navigate that environment when you can.
Preserve yourself.
Preserve yourself. Like I said, having, if you're able to work from home, do work from home. Take the time off when you need to. Go on leave when you need to. Even if it does get people to say certain things, make sure you're able to create that distance between you and that environment. Pour into your friendships. Pour into your personal relationships. Find that source that energizes you, that fills your cup, so that when you do enter that workspace, you remember that, I have people or a support system that actually cares about me. And so when I am here, I'm making sure that I deliver what I need to, whilst I know that I'm also just working on an exit strategy, because prolonged discomfort leads to stress, and unattended stress and prolonged stress leads to depression and mental health issues, and you don't want to get to that point.
And you're going to start spending money on things that you never thought you would. You're going to start spending money on hospital bills.
Exactly.
Caused by nothing that you did yourself, caused by other extrinsic factors. So save your own money and preserve yourself.
Exactly.
I agree with that. So I want to talk about being in the actual environment, that workplace, right? What happens to employees when bullies are protected, promoted, while other employees go through hard times? And most of the time, they go through hard times in silence. Yet the bullies are being promoted. They are actually the ones who are standing out.
Yeah. So what happens is that you create a culture of high attrition, number one. So you see a lot of turnover. The popular saying that people don't leave organizations, they leave bad managers or bad colleagues, right? So there becomes a high turnover rate, instability to the business as well from a people perspective. And I don't think organizations really think about that when they promote or they celebrate or protect bullies over high-performing individuals or individuals who are well capable, right? I think they create an unstable environment that doesn't allow for conducive and sustainable productivity from an employee perspective, because you'll always see dips in performance, or you'll always see, a high turnover rate, or employees experiencing high levels of absenteeism because they can't deal with the pressures or the stresses that come with leaders who are in positions of power and who are bullies, and who are making, their work circumstances and situations intolerable. So high absenteeism, definitely one of the things. High turnover, high levels of stress, that toxic work environment that we spoke about in an earlier question.
Yeah.
In that, because if they are protected and if they are supported and celebrated, what it does is that it promotes that kind of behavior.
It does.
And it creates that kind of culture. And what it portrays is that for anybody who is a subordinate, they think that that kind of behavior is normalized and is acceptable. And so in order for them to get ahead, they would have to embody some of those characteristics.
And then it breeds more bullies.
Wow. Right? And so I don't think organizations really think about the ripple effect of this, because if it is profitability at all costs over people, then you are likely and you're prone to then create environments that are like this. And so it's really just about thinking, how do we create work environments that are sustainable?
Correct. And
sustainability meaning that it is preserving employee health and well-being, whilst ensuring that they are supported to be able to be productive. And in their productivity, it's going to increase performance, and performance is going to result in productivity. Very simple equation, but it's usually missed along the way because it is lopsided, essentially.
It is.
It is lopsided. It is profit
over everything.
Over everything. And so, it just breeds a culture of more bullies, really.
Yeah, that's actually embarrassing. Really.
Yeah.
I think it's, why are we doing things the other way around? Bullies are socially not acceptable. Why are we socially accepting them in certain environments?
If they can get us the numbers and they can make us look good.
Well, if we were to quantify reputation, a company's reputation based on their turnover and it will have a negative impact over time. It won't be sustainable.
Over time, exactly.
So another question is this. If, for example, somebody gets an email that would humiliate them, it was meant to humiliate and intimidate or harm them, and those are the words that are used in the code, what steps can they take to address this? Unfiltered emails that are in the workplace. People just write as they please. They write as they think, but they don't think things through to say, how would this email land to the group that I'm sending it to, or to the individual that I'm sending it to? How do we filter things for it not to hurt, harm, and intimidate people?
Yeah. I mean, it starts with you, right? And acknowledging that another individual is deserving of respect and preservation of their dignity. Right? But if you are intending to intimidate and intending to diminish their dignity in the workplace, then obviously you will be comfortable drafting an email like that, right? But if you are on the receiving end of something like that, I think, number one, the good thing that is on your side is that it's documented.
You've got evidence.
You've got evidence. Let's start with that. Secondly, in that, you knowing that you have evidence, then it gives you the power in that situation to respond, not react, respond in a way that is going to preserve and protect you.
Correct.
So you don't respond from the same level of energy. You respond by potentially even asking questions to say, sorry, what did you mean by that? Do you mind clarifying what this phrase is? Or do you mind being mindful of your tone when you are addressing me over an email. And if it is a matter of having then supporting evidence of whatever it is that they're asking for, documenting that or attaching that information to say, please see XYZ. This has been communicated as per. In future, please be mindful of your tone when you are addressing me. And understanding that you can build up on, your evidence over time, whether it is via email, whether it is in person, whatever the case is. I don't particularly recommend that you immediately go the HR route, especially when you don't have documented evidence over a period of time.
Correct.
But again, if you come back to what are the company values, because we all go through induction.
Yep.
What are the company values? What are the things that they say about how we treat each other in this organization? What are the things that they say about internal communication with each other? Etiquette within the organization. And if there is something that has been documented, then that you can use to justify why you may push back against an email that is harmful or intimidating, then also use that. Also use that to say, oh, by the way, we pride ourselves as an organization to have these types of values. And this is how we have been trained and inducted to communicate with each other and, via email etiquette or whatever the case is. Is this aligned to that standard? Does it speak to that?
And if the answer is no.
And if the answer is no, then what interventions are there? Do you have managers that can support that? Do you have an HR department that can support that?
Do we have the ability to call out this person and lay accountability at their door?
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. But I mean, to be able to call that out, again, you have to be supported.
You do.
Right? You have to be supported by the right people at the right levels. And I think as much as, we can be promoting that you need to stand up for yourself, you need to do this, which is exactly what you need to do. But there's a tactful way of doing it, and a way that recognizes the long-term implications of how not acting in that way can affect you.
Correct.
Because remember, your livelihood is still at stake. Your well-being is still at stake. And so if you are playing the long game and, you want to plan out an exit strategy and, you don't have things figured out and you're still going to be in that environment for an extended period of time. You do want to be a lot more mindful and tactful in how you respond, where you use things like policies and, relationships potentially with certain leaders to help you navigate that space, as opposed to biting back and as opposed to telling you off. I think that's very short-sighted.
There's consequences to
it. You can be victimized even further. You can be isolated even further. You can be harassed in different ways. And so you have to be very tactful and really just be strategic about how you would approach even something like that, but in a way that helps to protect you and that also calls out the behavior. That also says, I noticed what you did there.
Yes.
And going forward, you need to move differently.
I won't accept that going forward. Tactfully. Sure. Okay. So one more question. If corporates have wellness activities in your line of work, do you think that such programs and activities are effective?
I don't think they're enough.
Okay.
I think they're effective when done right, but I don't think that they're enough. So when we talk about corporate wellness, activities, it's not just the wellness day. We need to talk about employee assistance programs. We need to talk about, wellness centers potentially. And what we see popularly is, employee assistance programs, EAPs within work environments. And in that space, it is also about creating a lot more awareness around services like that within an organization, but also destigmatizing those services, right?
Right.
Because it also comes with that. If you are then seen approaching EAP service provider within your workplace, then it creates a certain perception. And again, coming back to the culture of the organization, if it promotes wellness, then there shouldn't be a need for people to frown upon people that need support and need help. And when you look at EAP service providers as well, it's about evaluating if they're able to support employees across the board, whether it is with their physical wellness needs, mental wellness needs. Some of them might need financial assistance or financial advisory rather. Some of them might even need legal advisory in different ways, and like I said, when an employee comes into the workplace, they are this holistic being with different facets.
Correct.
And so when we evaluate these corporate wellness initiatives, we need to consider, do they address the different elements of the individual, and also are they able to be accessible enough? Are they visible enough? And what is the general attitude around participating in these types of initiatives? And if there's a negative attitude, then how do we address that so that people can see this as very integral in their productivity, their performance, and ultimately success within the workplace?
Amazing. Yo, Mbali, that was a lot to take in. And I think people would be more empowered to have this level of information, to have access to this level of information, and to also be mindful of happenings around them so that they don't second guess themselves. They get their allies. They have people around them. They build really an environment around themselves that can help them to navigate, workplace toxicity, that can help them to navigate, individuals that they work with. And I think these are quite important discussions that we're having around workplace wellness. And thank you so much for joining us. This has been really, really informative. This has been empowering. And I really know that the people who follow Mamolao are really going to be more mindful of, workplace wellness in their everyday life. So thank you so much for joining us, Mbali.
Thank you for having me.
So guys, that was all we had for this segment. Thank you so much for joining us. I really hope that you have learned a lot. Remember to empower yourself, read up on the code, make sure that you know what is going on in the workplace. Follow Mbali on a podcast and YouTube channel called Wellness in the Workplace. For me, Mamolao, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Please make sure that you share this video to people who you know may need it, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Real Mamolao. From me, Mamolao, goodbye.